Call of the Void contains strong language and possible trigger warnings and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Deacon.
Hi, I'm Jack.
And welcome to Call of the Void, a podcast about all things weird and macabre. Okay, honestly, I really just want to jump into things because there's something I really am super excited to talk about. But I think you have something that you want to talk about a little bit first.
Yeah, okay. I'm super excited about what you have to say. I've been very good and not looked it up despite my incredible curiosity. Okay. So, in Philadelphia, I don't know if you've heard about this, but 7,000 bugs and lizards were stolen from a museum, and buzz is, employees did it. That is the headline.
What?
Yeah, so there's, I forget the website I originally read about it on. That headline was from livescience.com. So this museum in Philadelphia, the Philadelphia Insectarium and Butterfly Pavilion, 7,000 different insects and spiders and a couple of geckos, I believe, were stolen. Just straight up stolen. Over the course of a couple of days, even. And, they come into work one day, and they find a blue worker's apron tacked to the wall with 2 knives.
What?
Yeah. So the best part is, they're like, yeah, we're pretty sure this was a disgruntled employee that got fired. They caught some of it on camera. Like, they have a suspect. They think they know who did it. A couple of workers helped this person and have since come clean and convinced the cops that they did it under duress. Which, if you're the kind of person that would steal... Oh, and by the way, this was 80% of the museum's collection. 80%
Jesus.
worth... Yeah.
That's a lot of bugs to just disappear.
Yeah, and the animals, all total, cost about $40,000.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, we think that whoever stole them is intending to sell them. Now, here's one of the big things about this. One of the creepiest things about this is that a couple of the insects, if I recall, are poisonous, but one of them in particular is a 6-eyed sand spider, if I'm getting the name correctly, and it's a highly venomous spider. So it's like, why? Like, the idea of a random person just having this spider is kind of, it's not a warm, fuzzy
terrifying.
Feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, and I forgot one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. Whoever did it is, like, probably in even bigger trouble than you might imagine, because a few of the insects were part of an FBI investigation. They were evidence.
Wait, no, excuse me. Wait. No. Why were they part of an FBI investigation?
So what happened was, if I recall...
Did someone use bugs to commit a murder? Is that, like, a thing that happened?
No, but don't give people ideas, Deacon. So, if I recall...
I mean, it's the perfect crime.
Deacon, no! So, if I recall, they were illegally smuggled into the country and almost immediately confiscated by the FBI, but until the trial, they needed to store these insects someplace, and the insectarium is one of the few places that was able to house the bugs and take care of them.
That makes sense.
So this person stole FBI evidence on top of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a whole ton of nope with this story. Like, and I was saying to Bat and Gideon before, a couple of friends of ours, I was saying to them, you know, like, I can understand the geckos, and I can understand the tarantulas.
I mean, I'd steal a gecko, yeah.
Yeah, like, and I can understand the tarantulas, because, like, those are things that people have as pets. For a little while, I actually did want a tarantula as a pet. But, damn, like, one of them was, like, a desert centipede, which, you know how I feel about centipedes.
Yeah.
Fuck centipedes, man.
Gives you all the heebie-jeebies.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, I stepped on one with my bare foot the other day because it just randomly darted out while I was stepping. That was not fun.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, I understand you have another story you want to get to. So before I get to the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk to you about, I'll talk about another smaller story.
Mm-hmm.
So, I don't know if you know too much about abandoned places.
A little bit.
Here in North Carolina, where I live,
mm-hmm.
There was a abandoned Wizard of Oz theme park in the mountains.
Okay. I think I've seen pictures of this one before.
It was extremely creepy because, like, it's usually foggy around the area. So people, like, broke in, would take pictures, and it's like Silent Hill meets Wizard of Oz, and it's it's the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
So in other words, I want to live there.
Possibly, yeah.
Okay.
But, fun thing, this summer they actually opened up for the first time in, like, 35 years? It's been closed for over 35 years. They opened up this summer again, to let people in. Now, this, I mentioned this because this 35 years ago, somebody made a Wizard of Oz theme park. And the creepy bit about this is that they have, like, a bunch of trees and stuff that are painted, like, with, like, the weirdest, creepiest faces on them.
So, like, the forest in the movie.
Yeah, like, but they're, like, terrifying. Like, they have, like, so some of the trees have, like, weird knots on them, and they've painted those to look like eyes, and they've carved little mouths out, and it's really creepy looking.
I told you
everything about this place is like a whole bunch of nope.
Oh, okay, so I did want to live there until you just told me that, because, like, I told you why I'm afraid of gnomes, right?
I think vaguely. I think you've vaguely mentioned it before.
Okay, like, super quick. The ride isn't there anymore from what I've heard. But when I was 15, I went to Disney World on vacation. It's the first and only time I ever went there. And in Epcot, they have I always forget what it's called. I want to say the Lands. I think that's what it is. And it's like a bunch of different countries, and some of them have, like, restaurants. You can have, like, beer from different countries. And
it's Epcot now. Yeah.
Yeah, Epcot. That's what I said.
Epcot. Yeah.
So,
that's yeah.
So, in the Norway section of Epcot, they had this ride called the Spirit of Norway. And so it was like
Norway.
so it was like a log flume type ride. Like, you know the thing where it's like it's water, but the thing is on a track. So I get in the front because of course I do. And I'm there with my cousin and I believe my brother. Which, by the way, if you ever hear me refer to Reaper, that's my brother. So, we're in the front of the thing, and we get to this part of the ride, and, like, there's a narrator explaining Norway and Norwegian culture and stuff, and it's really lovely. And then the log flume thing stops in front of this giant tree, and the narrator starts talking about gnomes. And then all of a sudden this tree opens its giant eyes that it didn't have a second ago, and all of these creatures start coming out of the woodwork, and it was terrifying. And I went on this ride like another 4 or 5 times to try to desensitize myself, and it just didn't work. So yeah, now I'm afraid of gnomes. And, oh my god. And the worst part, in the gift shop, they had this giant gnome statue, like, if you wanted to take pictures. And of course my mom wanted to take pictures. Oh. And I was like, no, I don't want to do this. And she's like, Jack, you're being ridiculous. Like, just do it. So I go, and I'm like, all right, did you take the picture? She took the picture, and this is before any of us had digital cameras, so we had to get the pictures developed, and when we did, there was this one picture of like this open sky and clouds, and the picture of the gnome fused with that picture, so you vaguely see this evil looking gnome face. So it's like you thought you could get away from this.
God, is that you?
If God is a gnome, I think I'm screwed with the amount of shit I've talked about gnomes.
Anyway.
I'm sorry.
So this abandoned park just opened up for the first time in a while. And while that's not like super creepy, it has some really creepy imagery. And for those out there who have not seen this or not heard about it, I really highly encourage you to look up the abandoned Wizard of Oz amusement park, because the pictures of it are extremely creepy. And one of the things that I so wanted to go visit there before they opened and they renovated everything. But there were so many people who were like super interested in it that they were like, hey, let's open it back up again. And so they did.
So this is going to sound really silly, but you said that they renovated it because of course they would renovate it. That makes no sense to just leave it the way that it is. And my brain went, oh, they changed it?
Yeah, they did a whole bunch of renovations. Like they had to. It was over 35 years old.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you had another story you wanted to talk about, and then I will talk about the craziest fucking thing I've ever heard.
Oh, I can't wait. Okay, so you mentioned clowns earlier. Yeah, have I ever told you? Okay, so I live in New York. I'm from New York. Have I ever told you, I think I might have mentioned it to you once, about the Staten Island clown?
No.
Okay.
No, you did not.
So...
I'm gonna regret this, but what is the Staten Island clown?
So...
that I know to never visit Staten Island, ever.
Okay, so the clown isn't there anymore. So, people...
Oh, he's moved on.
Yeah, people... Maybe he's with the gnomes. But yeah, so... people just started seeing this creepy-looking clown just hanging around under streetlights at night, just chilling. And then it turned out that it was a marketing ploy by someone who ran their own production company. And it was for...
Okay, that's cooler than what I was thinking it was, because... For me, I'm thinking, like, the clowns that were randomly appearing in woods and shit for, like, the past, 2 years. That's probably what inspired it.
I would never, ever, ever send you a picture of this thing, because I know...
Yeah, please don't.
But, like, even knowing that that's what it was, it's still super fucking creepy. But the best part is Reaper knows these people. He went to high school with them. So when he heard about it, he goes, of fucking course it was them. But like, I've seen, it's Fuzz on the Lens Productions, by the way, and they have this movie that I saw. I was lucky enough to go to the premiere of it, because they did like a friends and family type thing in Manhattan, and it was it's called Abnormal Attraction. and it's hilarious and wonderful. But yeah, like, that was the funniest thing. And a friend of mine saw a clown at the ferry terminal and was talking to a friend of hers and was like, oh, it's probably the Staten Island clown because it's hanging by the ferry terminal. And her friend goes, that guy was arrested. Like, they figured out who that was. So my friend took a picture of this clown, and then her phone died and stopped working and never worked again.
Well.
So, like, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, I leave you with that.
Okay.
Yes.
So, this is a story I've been wanting to talk to you about for a while. And, okay, so this happened in South Carolina, and I live in North Carolina, and I can drive to this place within an hour if I wanted to. Like, that's how close by this shit is. And I want to preface this by, as someone who is extremely interested in and wants to go to school to become a funeral director, I heard this and was livid. I have never been more angry at a news story in my entire life. 2 funeral home workers in Spartanburg, South Carolina, were arrested recently, like within the last week or so, because the family could no longer afford to pay for refrigeration costs, because it costs to, like, have a body in refrigeration.
Yeah.
So, at most funeral homes. But, yeah, so they couldn't afford the bill anymore. So the funeral home workers took the body out of refrigeration, laid it basically on a table, covered it with a sheet, and surrounded it by air fresheners. How long do you think they left this body out? Now, given what you know about forensics, how long it takes for rigor mortis to set in, how long the body starts to decay, that kind of thing, how long do you think this body sat there for? What do you think a reasonable amount of time to leave a body out is? Like, unrefrigerated.
Like, less than a day.
It's not at all, but but no, like, how?
No, I thought you meant, like, for prep and stuff like that. Like,
I mean, that's fine. Like, that kind of thing is fine, but I mean, how long do you think they left this body out for? Just take an educated guess.
A month. I'm gonna say something very crazy.
3 years.
Fuck!
Exactly. 3 years. This lady died. I will read the story. Here we go.
Yes,
they were supposed to cremate 36-year-old, I'm not saying the names to protect privacy, but if you want to look up the story, go for it.
Yeah.
But they were supposed to cremate the 63-year-old woman after her funeral in Greenwood in March 2015, but instead left her remains in a locked room under blankets and surrounded by fragrant items, and even moved her body from one funeral home to another 65 miles away.
Wait, they were supposed to cremate her?
They gave, apparently, from what I understand, they gave them the ashes of another person.
Oh my god.
And left her body out for 3 years. This lady's remains were so badly decomposed when found in February that it took 2 weeks of reviewing medical records to confirm her identity. I was livid when I heard this story. Absolutely, totally livid. Because my question is, how do you go into work every day knowing that there is a body a corpse that you were supposed to do something with under sheets in a room, unrefrigerated, decomposing. How do you do that? How do you go home and sleep at night knowing that you've done that to a family who is already grieving and going through a lot of emotional trauma?
Yeah,
like, how do you do that?
And not that the age matters, but she was 36 when she died. Like, that's...
She was 63.
Oh, 30...
Other way.
What did you say? You said 36, I thought.
No,
but
no,
either way...
63-year-old.
Did my brain just do that?
I don't
without...
know. It's possible, or I have dyscalculia, so I could have said 36.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah.
But no, it's she's 63. 63 years old.
Okay, but that's still super young. Like,
it is.
So on top of that, like, here's the thing. As somebody who has experienced a lot of death, like a lot, like I've known quite a few people who have died. Some of them very close to me, like very, very close. It's hard enough when they're up there, you know, or whatever. Like, even if you like sort of expect it to happen, that does not make it easier.
Yeah.
But when somebody is like still very young and they die, that's even more of a blow, because you feel like, oh, they should still be here and blah blah blah, you know. So on top of that,
yeah,
and the grieving,
here's another thing, and this story gets worse from here. But both of the people in question should know better, first off, because they're in their 40s. But here's the thing. So, continuing the story, one of the guys lost his funeral director's license in April of 2015 in an unrelated matter, after he forged the signature and other information on a life insurance document after the person with control of the policy refused to use it to pay for funeral services. So somebody had a life insurance policy, and they said, hey, I'm not going to use this life insurance policy to pay for, like, they got the money off of it. They said, I don't want to use this to pay for the funeral, whatever. So he forged the signature of the family onto that to get money, and he had his license revoked. The other guy never had a funeral license in South Carolina at all. But the lady's family had a celebration of life service where her body was viewed shortly after her March 2015 death. Her remains were then supposed to be cremated and returned to the body. The lawsuit and indictment didn't give any reason why the funeral home kept the lady's body for nearly 3 years. The Post of Courier of Charleston obtained sworn statements from the state law enforcement division that said that the two men kept the remains because the family didn't pay the bills. But it's not their body to keep.
But also that's bullshit, because the family thought they had the ashes of their loved one this whole time.
Apparently, yeah.
So, whether or not they paid the bill, they thought that they had this person's ashes anyway. So it's not like you're... I mean, look, this is shitty no matter what, but it's not like you're punishing them for not paying the bill. You're just keeping somebody's remains.
I mean,
why wouldn't you just cremate her after the fact?
Her husband said that another funeral home did go ahead and cremated his wife's body. I don't know if they charged him for it, but I really hope that they didn't. I hope that it was free of charge, because he's already been through a fuck ton.
Dude.
But it says her ashes sit in an urn in his home beside a tiny portrait taken from her driver's license, because that's the only picture he had of her.
Aww.
Like, this is an incredibly sad story, and I hate everything about it. Like,
yeah.
this is crazy to me.
That's
like,
awful.
how do you do this? How do you do something like this? Like, I heard this story a week ago on the radio, and I was driving to work, and I was like, wait, what the fuck? And I got to work, and I took, like, 20 minutes to just sit there and read through this story and be like, no. Like, there's no way. Like, there's no possible way on this earth that someone is that stupid and would do something like this. Like, I hate the story.
Yeah,
I hate the story a lot.
Damn.
To move on to something else, I guess, and
Yes.
just to kind of give a little bit of clarification by how weird my state is. I'm gonna move to a slightly different story. It's still weird, and it's still not great.
Leave us off on a high note.
Well, no, I've got a story to leave us off on a high note. I promise. It's real good. You're gonna laugh at it. It's great.
Okay.
Anyway, this happened in North Carolina. So this happened a couple years ago. So this isn't recent. But I just wanted to talk about this with you because this is, I don't know, it's incredibly interesting to me.
Okay.
I will
hit me
read
with it.
I will read the headline.
Okay.
Creepy cloaked figure dropping raw meat on playgrounds sparks fear among residents in North Carolina. This yeah, exactly.
That evokes. Oh shit.
So let me preface this. This happened in Gastonia, North Carolina, for
Okay.
those who might need to know that. At the time, there were reports of disappearances of children going on. And then there was this
That's not funny.
there's this random creepy hooded figure that's going around and dropping raw meat on parking lots.
Okay, so now
playgrounds.
So now that hilarious headline becomes terrifying, and I feel bad for laughing.
Yes, a cloaked figure is apparently dropping raw meat on playgrounds in a North Carolina community. A creepy pale figure has sparked fear among locals after it was reportedly caught on camera lurking outside an apartment complex in Gastonia dressed in a dark cloak. It's not clear what the person, who could be a character in a horror film or Star Wars, air quotes is what they say in the thing. This person does not look like they could be from Star Wars.
Have you ever seen Star Wars?
Was doing outside the apartment building, nor why they were donning the floor-length hooded attire. Their identity and gender is also unknown. But there are plenty of pictures. And this spread around a pretty good bit here in North Carolina. And there were rumors that, like, this person was taking the kids, then bringing them back to the playgrounds where he found them. Which I was like, that's a real good story.
I was just gonna say, like, that's a bomb-ass plotline to a horror film.
Yeah,
but...
I was like, that's a really cool fucking story, but that's not what was going on. Apparently, he was going to parks and playgrounds, we don't know who they were. They've never been caught. Like, we don't know who this person is. They're still at large. But they were going around and dropping raw meat in playgrounds and parks that was supposedly infected with salmonella.
Again, I'm laughing, and then you drop some terrible knowledge on me.
Yeah, so the assumption, and that's just from what I've heard around here, is that, like, they were infected with salmonella, and the plan was that, like, kids would play with the meat, not knowing what it was, or that animals would eat it, and then they would get sick and potentially die, and it would be, you know, a thing. But yeah, that was a thing that happened in North Carolina a couple years ago. Let me see when this story was actually posted. Like, this story was, like, well known enough that, like, 2015, 3 years ago.
Okay.
When the body issue happened. The last story. 3 years ago. Coincidences. Anyway, no, like, this was the article that I'm reading was from Daily Mail UK. So that's how far this spread. This little thing in North Carolina that was like real weird and fucked up, like made its way around the world for whatever reason. But yeah, there was a hooded, cloaked figure in North Carolina just kind of dropping raw meat in playgrounds. I don't understand this state. Like I don't understand the Carolinas. Like there are reasons I want out of here.
Please excuse my coughing fits. I'm getting over a respiratory infection. Oh my god.
Okay. And I will close this out with a story that I really like this story.
So you're gonna let me go on that roller coaster of haha, this is funny. No, it's terrible. Haha, it's funny again. No, it's terrible.
So no, I gave you an awful story. I'm giving you a funny awful story, and now I'm giving you a funny story.
Okay.
This one's pretty great.
All right.
Paranormal investigator fires gun at alleged ghost inside home.
Oh my god.
A Connecticut man who told police he was a paranormal investigator faces several charges after firing shots in his house at what he told police may have been a ghost.
Okay. This sounds like a child who did something bad and is trying to come up with a reasonable thing and is like, it was a ghost. I'm a paranormal investigator.
The guy's due in court on September 11th on 5 counts of including the illegal discharge of a firearm, making a false statement to police, second-degree reckless endangerment, misusing an emergency call, and disorderly conduct. Police say that he put 2 bullet holes in his wall on July 26th, initially reporting the incident as an attempted break-in. He later told police that he believes the intruder was actually a spirit. He is currently free on $5,000 bond and did not immediately return a phone call seeking comment. A haunting in Connecticut, indeed.
Was that a part of the article?
No, that was me.
Oh my god.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, shit.
But yeah, so I don't know how you call the police being like, oh yeah, there's an intruder in my home, and then later be like, oh no, it was a ghost. Sorry, Bobby. like I believe in ghosts and all that kind of stuff, and that's not why this is so funny. But to me, like it. From every report of like ghost activity I've ever heard ever, it doesn't look like somebody who would be breaking into your house. Like, was he like clad in a balaclava or some shit? Like, all black.
Me, I'm dying.
I mean, it could have been a shadow person, but still, like, Jesus Christ.
Was he dropping meat?
Oh. Anyway, I think that's all the time we have for this episode.
Yeah. Oh,
but
God.
Again, I'm Deacon.
I'm Jack.
And we'll see you guys in the next one. Good night, everybody, and sweet dreams.
Call the Void contains strong language and possible trigger warnings and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Call of the Void contains strong language and possible trigger warnings and is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.